Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Stephanie.
I'm Tom.
Hey, it's day 2 of our food unit. Besides traveling, which I also love, I love our food unit. I love traveling. I love history, too. That's all fun. Today, we're going to continue talking about a most delicious food. We're using one word to talk about a lot of dishes that have similarities, but they're not exactly the same either. But we refer to them as dumplings. Now, in their own language, they usually have a different word for those things, right? We're talking about English using the word dumpling, but the different countries and cultures have, their own language titles for these words they use. For example, the Chinese, we talked about, baozi and jiaozi and stuff like that. But today we're going to be focusing on Chinese dumplings. No, we already talked about Chinese. We're going to go this time to Polish.
Ooh.
Yeah, the pierogi is very famous. I think most Americans have had a pierogi at least once. We have a lot of Polish immigrants that moved to America in, I would say, the 1800s. We had a lot of immigrants move in. That's a delicious dish. And also, we're going to talk about something similar that they make in Sweden. Yeah, let me see if I can say it. Pietapult, which is the Swedish word for it.
I hope it doesn't stink with salmon or something like that.
They love stinky fish over there a lot, don't they?
Yeah, there's some kind of stinky dish in Sweden that some people like, some people hate, but that's not what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking again about different kinds of dumplings all over the world. So let's get into it, everybody. Let's read the contents of today's lesson, and we'll come back to discuss it.
European countries also make their own distinctive dumplings. In Poland and anywhere with a Polish community, you can easily find delicious pierogi being made and served at any meal and for any occasion. These can be fried, boiled, or even baked. They have a roughly semicircular exterior with a crimped edge to hold the dough together. They're made from either noodle dough or pastry shells. While the most famous and widespread version contains potato and cheese, pierogi can be assembled from almost anything the cook prefers to use, from fish to mushrooms and even sweet fillings such as strawberry. Whereas Polish pierogi and Indian samosas often contain potato, Swedish pietapult have potato on the outside. The name is a reference to the northern Swedish city of Piteå, where they were first devised. The shell for these dumplings is made from a blend of potato and wheat flour. Roughly the size and shape of a tennis ball, pietapult are filled with meat and cooked by boiling. A plate of pietapult is typically accompanied by butter and lingonberry jam. So far, these dumplings haven't shared a precise origin or method of preparation. You might think dumpling just means a dough shell with filling inside. But in the U.S., if you opt for chicken and dumplings at a restaurant, you'll get a dish of chicken and solid boiled pieces of dough with no filling. The word dumpling is also sometimes used to refer to steamed, fillingless mantou. Maybe you'll have to resolve for yourself what this ambiguous word really means. Thankfully, you can do so while enjoying a variety of delicious dumplings from around the world.
Okay, it's time for us to explain the content of today's lesson. I know you're all looking forward to it, so let's get going here. Again, one word, but many dishes, dumplings around the world. So let's talk about some dumplings in European countries, besides the ones we talked about last time in Persia and India. We're going to European countries, and they also make their own distinctive dumplings. They're special, they're unique. You're not going to find them in other parts of the world. So let's go to Poland. And in Poland and anywhere with a Polish community, you can easily find delicious pierogi being made and served at any meal and for any occasion. Now, I'm from a small town in the country, and most of the people who lived there were of Scandinavian ancestry and German ancestry, so I never had a pierogi myself, but I understand in places like Pittsburgh and Chicago and probably in cities in Canada and stuff like that, there are large Polish communities there. And if you go down there and hang out with the Polish people there, of course, you can have the Polish sausage. That's world famous. But
those are good too.
You could also have a pierogi, and they are made and served at any meal. You can have them at any meal, and you can have them for any occasion, like a birthday party or a dance or a wedding or whatever.
Yeah, because there are different ways to make them. You can fry them, boil them, or even bake them. The one I had was baked, but I would love one that's deep fried. I love anything deep fried. So what do they look like? Well, they have a roughly semicircular exterior. When you say roughly, you just mean, well, it's not exactly this shape or exactly this number. For example, I have roughly 10 plants in my apartment. I don't know exactly how many I have, so you use roughly. So semicircular is half of a circle. You can also hear people say semicircular. I tend to say semi more, semicircular. And exterior, which is one of our vocab words, just means on the outside of something, the outside, the exterior of this particular pastry has a crimped edge. Oh, yes, crimped. We don't see this word very much, but we use it for two things. We use it when we're baking to make pies, the crust on the pies that we have. Usually you use your fingers to make those indentations or those marks around something. Hey, you guys use them when you make guotie or those kind of dumplings, right? You have those little, you have those little places that look really pretty and you have to fold things. Well, if it's crimped, it has little indentations. My mom has a special way of doing pie crust that I learned from her. And you just use your index finger, middle finger, and your thumb, and you go around and you make this cute, like, triangle shape around your pie. Well, these have a similar crimped edge. So crimped again. Oh, we also use it for hair, girls. Sometimes people will want, instead of curls, they'll want this kind of shape that looks like a triangle going down your head, crimped.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not round. It's more of a geometric shape, crimped. And this is what they do to hold the dough together. You don't want to have the dough open up while you're cooking because your filling will come out.
Exactly, and you need to do that with the dough. You crimp it together, you kind of pinch it together, and then the filling will stay inside. It won't go spilling out. And they're made from either noodle dough or pastry shells. So dough, of course, can be made into different forms. Of course, here in Taiwan, if you make noodles, you need to use different kinds of dough for the noodles, different mixture of flour and water and oil and stuff like that. And you also got pastry shells, which will have different ingredients as well, because pastry shells are more for things you buy in a bakery, where noodles are what you'll find in an Italian restaurant or here in your bowl of niuromian. You'll have noodles there. Now, while most famous and widespread versions, the most famous and widespread version, contains potato and cheese, pierogi can be assembled from almost anything the cook prefers to use, from fish to mushrooms and even sweet fillings such as strawberry.
Yum.
So basically we're saying that the most common ingredient or ingredients would be potato and cheese. Not whole potatoes, just the potato meat or, the substance of it all kind of smashed together. And then you've got cheese in there. So that's the most common or widespread version. But, of course, everybody's got a different recipe. Different cooks from different parts of Poland probably have different recipes that they got from their grandmother or whatever. So these can be assembled from almost anything the cook prefers to use. So if you assemble something, you put it together. Like if you buy furniture at IKEA, for example, you need to assemble it yourself. You need to put it together yourself. And, of course, to prefer means that's what you'd rather do or what you'd rather say. I prefer to stay home and not go see a movie, for example.
Yeah, Tom was right when he talked about the potato being more like a mashed potato. They don't put whole chunks into the filling. It's actually a mashed potato. And then that is combined with cheese. It's very fattening, yes. So you can imagine. Poland is very cold in the winter, and when they didn't have a lot of food, especially, these pierogi kept people alive. So, yeah, it's not the healthiest of dumplings, but they're sure good. And you don't have to make them huge, although the pierogis I've had are pretty big. Yeah, so you can put anything you want inside, from fish to mushrooms. Those would be more healthy, I'm sure. And even have a sweet pierogi and use a filling with strawberries. So yeah, this sounds really good. Fillings refers to different kinds of fillings, but if you're just filling one pierogi or the pierogis that you're making, you don't say my fillings are, you say my filling is potatoes and cheese. So yeah, sounds really good. The strawberry one I would like. It sounds more like a dessert. But remember, we were told that pierogis are eaten for any meal of the day. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, maybe a late night snack.
And that's not all they eat either. They probably have all sorts of different kinds of tasty dishes, which we don't have time to get into today. And again, that word potato is tricky, as is the word filling, because potato and filling can be non-count and they can be countable nouns. If you're talking about individual potatoes, then that's countable. They grow a lot of potatoes in Idaho, for example. But here we're talking about the actual substance of the potato, so therefore it's non-count. And it's like milk or cheese. And so you put that in the pierogi and, ooh, it's going to be oh so tasty. And fillings is the same way. Filling generally is non-count. How much filling should I put in the dumpling, for example? But if you talk about different kinds of filling, then you can count those different types. Sweet fillings, such as strawberry or maybe other kinds of fruit. Okay, that brings us to the midway point in today's lesson. Let's take a break now and listen to our Chinese teacher.
大家好，我是派老师。今天讲解的是 Unit2 One Word Many Dishes Dumplings Around the World 第2天的课程。前一天的课程收听结束以后，不晓得有没有听众朋友好奇的到土耳其餐厅点 Mandy 来吃吃看。前一天介绍完亚洲还有近东地区的 dumplings， 今天的内容继续介绍欧洲的 dumplings。Without further ado， 我们一起看看今日课程内容的学习重点。好，请看到第一段的第一个句子 European countries also make their own distinctive dumplings。 请同学特别注意 distinctive 这个单字。这个单字的意思呢，是指很有特色、与众不同，足以作为区别的。所以意思就是指，虽然世界各地都有他们自己形式的 dumplings， 但是在欧洲，他们的 dumplings 其实是很特别、与众不同的。好，再接着，请同学呢就直接的看到第6个句子 While the most famous and widespread version contains potato and cheese。 这个句子老师要提醒大家，接下来呢这个部分所介绍的是波兰的 dumpling， 然后也是一样用 while 这个连接词来做鲜明的对比，就是最有名、最普及、最常看到的在波兰他们所做的这种 dumpling 称之为 pierogi。 那它最常见的、最有名的其实是包马铃薯还有 cheese， 但实际上那就做了一个对比啦。实际上 pierogi can be assembled from almost anything， 其实里面呢可以是任何的东西。后面呢还有一个省略掉关系代名词的关系子句The cook prefers to use， 它可以使用任何厨师想要用的食材，包括 from fish to mushrooms， 从鱼肉到这些菇类 to mushrooms， and even sweet fillings such as strawberry， 甚至于也可以包甜的馅料。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back, guys. We're talking about different dumplings around the world. It's one English word that's applied to different dishes around the world. Different cuisines have something that's kind of like a dumpling. They all share a couple of things in common. First, if you're talking about a dumpling, it usually has some sort of dough shell or a filling. Sometimes you don't have a filling, and we're going to be talking about that a little later when we talk about the USA's version of a dumpling. Chicken and dumplings is a famous dish.
I think people here in Taiwan would probably scoff at such a dish.
Really?
Chicken and dumplings? You guys actually eat that stuff? But it is a dish that my mother used to make when I was a kid, and it was quite tasty.
Yeah, but isn't mian ge da kind of similar to their dumpling?
Yeah, it's very similar. We'll get to that when we talk about that. But
okay.
Yeah, these dumplings in America are similar to mian ge da, and you might be thinking, mian ge da and dumplings? They're not the same thing. Well, let us explain in just a couple of seconds.
They have some similarities. Yeah.
They do indeed. They're just kind of little pieces of dough. But in any case, here the next paragraph says, whereas Polish pierogi and Indian samosas often contain potato, Swedish pittipalt have potato on the outside. How the heck do they do that? I'd like to know that. But whereas, you could also say while it is true that Polish pierogi and Indian samosas have potato on the inside, well, at the same time, Swedish pittipalt have potato on the outside. Yeah, it's kind of hard to imagine. I would think that if you have the potato on the outside, wouldn't it kind of fall apart when you're cooking it?
No. Think about if you just make it out of the mashed potato, and if it's in a ball shape, it would stay together if you deep fried it. That sounds good,
doesn't it? Okay, it's possible. I'm sure the Swedish know how to do that. They certainly know how to make furniture as well, and cars, Volvo, Saab, etc.
Swedish meatballs are also very good.
They certainly are. And moving on to the next sentence here, it says, the name is a reference to the northern Swedish city of Pittia. I hope I said that.
Pittia.
Okay.
And pittipalt. Pittipalt. Yeah.
Okay. We've got this dumpling, pittipalt, from the Swedish city of Pittia, where they were first devised. If you devise something, of course, you come up with this idea. And the shell, or the outside for these dumplings, is made from a blend or a combination of potato and wheat flour. Aha, so it's not all potato on the outside. Yeah. It's a mixture of potato and wheat flour, so that's probably how it stays together.
Interesting, huh? So, yeah, they've got the shell that they come up with, which is very different from most of our pastry shells, which is usually just made of flour and some liquid water, milk, or sometimes you need some sort of oil like cold butter. So they've got their potato and wheat flour in their particular dough shell, the shell for the dough made out of dough. So roughly the size and shape of a tennis ball. So it's not small, it's pretty big shaped if it's the tennis ball size. And they actually use these to put some filling inside. Now, if it's Sweden, I typically just always assume it's fish. Those people eat a lot of fish, and some of their fish dishes are really disgusting. Sorry, any Swedish listeners out there.
Well, there's no accounting for taste.
Yeah, but they'll tell you that too. They'll actually admit that you have to get used to some of the tastes of their dishes, of their cuisine. So it's filled with meat, and then they cook it by boiling it. So unlike what I was hoping, that they'd put into a deep fryer, I love deep frying, they actually boil theirs. I think the Swedes eat pretty healthy food overall, so they probably don't eat a lot of deep fried food. So, yeah, this isn't surprising. Now, they've got a plate of pittipalt, and it's typically accompanied by butter and lingonberry jam. Lingonberry jam is lingonsylt in Swedish, which I found out. If you accompany something or somebody, it means you go along with them. You might have a friend who wants to accompany you to the park to take a walk and enjoy the nice fresh air outside. Or maybe your dog always accompanies you when you go to exercise early in the morning. So you can accompany things just by going along with something. So it sounds like this is popular with just some butter and yummy jam.
Exactly. And of course, if you go to IKEA, some of their meatball dishes will come with a little side of lingonberry jam, which is similar to cranberries. Now, moving on to the next paragraph here, it says, so far, up to now in our discussion, these dumplings haven't shared a precise origin or method of preparation. So yes, the examples that we've mentioned haven't really mentioned where they come from so much. At least they don't share an origin, basically that's what this is saying here. The dumplings come from different places, but they don't all have a single origin, like in Africa or the Middle East or something like that. And they don't have a similar method of preparation. They're prepared in different ways, but we still use the word dumpling to refer to all of them. And you might think dumpling just means a dough shell with filling inside. But in the U.S., if you opt for chicken and dumplings at a restaurant, you'll get a dish of chicken and solid boiled pieces of dough with no filling. Now, I remember having this dish when I was a kid. My mother made this dish. I actually liked it.
Oh, really?
I liked the consistency of the dumplings in my mouth. They were kind of chewy. And, well, when I came to Taiwan here, of course, I thought the men gada, that type of noodle resembles those dumplings, although I don't think anybody here would think of them as dumplings because I think dumplings in Taiwan have to have some sort of filling.
Aha. So we're going to talk about, again, the U.S. version of dumpling here. As Tom said, we have chicken and dumplings. I still have never tasted this dish. I think I thought that the dumplings had something fun inside them. And when I found out they were just dough, I thought, yuck, I don't want to eat, just big chunks of dough. But maybe I should give it a shot, should try. I always thought it was more of a southern dish, though, Tom.
Could be.
But you didn't grow up in the South, so that's interesting. Yeah, so chicken and dumplings, if you see it on a restaurant menu, give it a try, see if you like it, and see if it shares anything or has any commonalities or similarities with your mian gada here in Taiwan. So yeah, you get a dish of chicken and solid boiled pieces of dough with no filling. I thought chicken and dumplings, though, was in sort of a soup mixture. Am I wrong?
Could be. I do remember it kind of being like a soup, so there are probably different versions depending on where you are. I remember my mother used The Joy of Cooking. That was a famous cookbook.
Oh, that was very
time.
famous, yeah.
And I think lots of housewives had that book. And, of course, they got some great recipes in there.
Yeah.
I think most people these days have kind of not learned to cook properly. Most people eat out or they eat simple dishes and things like that.
Or they go to the grocery store and they buy the prepackaged stuff.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So things have gotten kind of simple in the U.S. But in any case here, this dish did exist at one time. It's probably out there somewhere. Well, let's talk about the word dumpling itself here. The word dumpling is also used sometimes to refer to steamed, fillingless mantou. I'm not sure if I agree with this. I think maybe some travel guides may refer to mantou as dumplings.
Oh, I'd call it a bun for sure.
Yeah, I would say bun because they don't really have any fillings in them. And I always screw up the tone on this when I go to the Yonghe Dojang place and try to get a mantou. I usually say mantou. But
So do I.
No, it's mantou.
Mantou.
Or, we always have problems with the tones there.
Sorry.
But, yeah, sometimes you might hear foreigners referring to mantou as dumplings, although to me that is absurd.
Yeah, I would definitely call it a bun myself. Of course, if you're in the country where they make this particular dish, whether you're in Iran or, let's see, where we say Poland, you might try to use their particular word for it instead of dumpling. But yeah, mantou, those are awfully yummy. They're very different from anything we have in America. I remember the first time I tasted it, I thought, oh, this is very different. Well, maybe you'll have to resolve for yourself. Resolve just means to figure something out. You'll have to figure out for yourself what this ambiguous word really means. Tom kind of referred to this earlier. If something's ambiguous, it just means it's kind of unclear. It's not very exact. Sometimes in language, something's open to more than one meaning. It has several meanings. So it's ambiguous. It's really not very clear what dumpling really means. Thankfully, Or, fortunately, you're grateful for this. You can do so while enjoying a variety of delicious dumplings from around the world. We hope you guys get a chance to taste some of these different types of dumplings and learn their accurate name, which would be fun too. Right now, we're out of time. We're going to listen to our Chinese teacher.
好，我们一起看到第二段的第一个句子。第一个句子 Whereas Polish pierogi and Indian samosas， 这里用 whereas 这个副词连接词开头。那同样的 whereas 和 while 都有连接前后两个子句作为鲜明对比的作用。我们看到这里的意思是说，波兰的 pierogi 还有印度的 samosa 通常都是内馅含有马铃薯，而相较之下，瑞典的 pitepalt 却是在外面有马铃薯。所以这是一个很鲜明的对比的状况，前面两个国家的内馅有马铃薯，而后面呢，则是把马铃薯呢放在外面的这个皮。好，再来，请同学看到第三个句子 The shell for these dumplings is made from a blend of potato and wheat flour。 请同学画起来，把 made from a blend of potato and wheat flour 画起来。所以我们知道在这里，瑞典的 pitepalt 它其实外皮是混合了马铃薯还有面粉 a blend of potato and wheat flour。 再来，请同学看到第五个句子 A plate of pitepalt is typically accompanied by butter。 好，这个句子请同学特别注意，我们通常说这一盘的 pitepalt 怎么吃呢？我们通常会配合着，就是会配上 butter， 配上奶油来吃。这个 accompanied by 就是配着什么来吃。好，再来，请同学呢看到第三段的第一句 So far, these dumplings haven't shared a precise origin 这个句子。那请同学特别注意到后面的 method of preparation， 其实指的呢就是这些食物的烹调方式。再来，请同学看到第二个句子，在第二个句子这边，请同学特别注意到 if 后面的这个子句 If you opt for chicken and dumplings at a restaurant， 这里指的当然是说如果你点什么，可是 opt for 其实原本的意思就是选择的意思， opt for 就是选择的意思。好，那再来，请同学看到第四个句子 Maybe you'll have to resolve for yourself，或许呢，你要由自己去判断 what this ambiguous word really means。 ambiguous 的意思指的就是模棱两可。那当然，因为我们这里所讲的就是 dumpling， 其实有很多种形式，所以有时候要靠消费者自己来判断。以上就是我们针对 Day 2所做的中文讲解，谢谢大家。
That's it for today, everybody. I'm sure we have whetted your appetite for dumplings. I'm sure you'd like to try some dumplings from different parts of the world, but hey, the dumplings here in Taiwan might just suffice. They are tasty. From all of us here at English Digest, my name is Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.